one of, if not the most electrifying, entertaining sports in the world. From the Ivy Leagues to the SEC, from the arena to the gridiron, football has made an impact in the world of sports. Just how was it created, though? Football was drastically different than it is today when it was originally created in 1878. We're going to look at the games it was shaped around and the rule changes that have turned it into the sport it is today. Football has become a part of everyday life, whether it's watching the Cats play on Saturdays or my Bengals on Sundays. It's a massive part of the United States culture, as well as being the highest grossing sports league in the world with the NFL. And it's a massive part of high school and communities as well. So I played football for the better part of a decade, including when I was in high school. So pretty much my whole life, and I've been watching it for as long as I can remember. So football was modeled after several different games, and the game that we see it as today is drastically different than the game that it was created. So let's take a look at its roots and where it began. So football was originally pretty much just rugby, like they were the same thing. They went under the name of rugby football. So the real creation of when it became American football and kind of split from rugby is in 1880 when Walter Camp made his first rule changes. So his first rule changes came in 1880, and they created a line of scrimmage and also created the center position, and they had to snap the ball back to the quarterback. And his second rule change was creating the down system, because they were having issues with teams going way too slow because they didn't have to make it to a certain point. They could just run unlimited plays until they scored. And he also legalized blocking, which was something extremely different from rugby, which you weren't allowed to block. And he also legalized tackling below the waist, which is also illegal in rugby. So as you can see, it was pretty much rugby to begin with until Walter Camp came around and just completely changed the game forever. But none of these rule changes are as revolutionary as the forward pass. So in 1906, the first legal forward pass ever was thrown, and football has never been the same since. You can't think of any teams, you can't think of any greatest players. There'd be no Tom Brady, no Aaron Rodgers, no Joe Burrow, no Dan Marino, no any of those guys if the forward pass wasn't invented. And now you have quarterbacks that can throw the ball 80 plus yards and like 60 plus miles per hour. It's just crazy. So without the forward pass, it would still just be seen as like pretty much another version of rugby that just completely changed the game. And the protection in the game has also changed. So since the starting days of no pad rugby style football, besides they had leg pads to start, but they didn't have anything besides maybe helmet leathers, if any, leather helmets, if any helmets at all, and they had no shoulder pads. But in 1939, the first plastic helmets were introduced, and in 1910, the first shoulder pads were introduced. So this made it so that they could play the violent style of football that we see today without it still being somewhat safe, kind of like how there's boxing gloves in fighting. So football, like I said, is one of the highest grossing sports in the world, or is the highest grossing sport in the world. It brings in the most money. The NFL and collegiate athlete football teams bring in the most money in the world out of all sports. And really, it wouldn't be the football that we know today without those drastic changes to the rule book from the original rugby kind of game. Football will forever be an always changing sport, but at least for me, I'll always love my Cats.